New DLC announced, the Teal Mask. Oh, I love the boy's hair. You explore the land of Kitakami and meet a trio of Pokemon who protected the land in the past. And I don't even need to do any research here. A heroic monkey, dog, and pheasant. And the boy has this hair and you go to an island. This is literally Momotaro, a very popular Japanese folktale hero. Actually, I've talked about them in some detail before in the video about Sock and Throw, as they are partially based on some of the antagonists of Momotaro's story. But now we've got the heroes, so here's the original story. Momotaro was a little boy who was born from a peach floating down a river and discovered by a childless woman and her husband. The boy was a blessing from the gods to them, and when he was just 5, he was strong enough to chop down trees with a simple kitchen knife, and so he did many heroic acts in his youth. But his main and most well-known achievement came when he reached adolescence. The land he called home was attacked by Oni, and he decided to go and attack them back on their home turf, Oni Island. On his journey to the island, he befriended a talking dog, monkey, and pheasant, who all agreed to help him in exchange for food. And thanks to their help, he was able to reach Oni Island, infiltrate the Oni fort, and beat all of the Oni into surrendering. They even plundered their treasures and took the demon chief as captive. And that chief is clearly what inspired Ogerpon. The Japanese word Oni is often translated to English as ogre or even demon, you see. And the story falls perfectly in line with Pokemon being a monster-catching and befriending game. Honestly, I'm surprised it took them this long to directly reference Momotaro. But anyway, the names of these Pokemon. Ogerpon is an ogre, and the Japanese suffix pon has many different meanings, like cute, the sound effect of slapping something soft, or it can be used as an honorific, like chan, senpai, sama, and such. Pon is similar to chan, only it's much more affectionate and silly. So I've got a feeling that this ogre is kind of gonna be a goofball, which is fitting, given the names of the other new Pokemon here. Okidoki looks like a cross between Zarude and Incineroar, but a dog. But yeah, its name sounds like Okidoki, a fun and silly way of saying okay, but it also has dog in there, and also the name just sounds Japanese. Oki can also mean open sea or large, but given that this Pokemon's Japanese name translates to yes dog or good dog, I think it's just supposed to be dog mixed with Okidoki.
Okidoki!
Plus, consider the next name. The monkey is named Munkidori.
Monkey.
Combining monkey with honky-dory, which is a fun, silly way of saying all is well, it's fine, it's great, everything is hunky-dory. And Fezandipiti? Well, it's a pheasant, and it's feeling serendipity. Another fun word that means good or lucky occurrences. Things are just delightful. It's so happy. It's feeling serendipity. And I like how the more feminine Fezandipiti has these yellow feathers in its hair, reminiscent of festival ribbons, hairpins, and chopsticks that women would put in their hair, especially during festivals. And then Munkidori's hair resembles the chonmage, a very traditional Japanese haircut for men. It's very out of fashion these days, but come festival time, many men will still get this style done. And it only having 2 toes is reminiscent of traditional Japanese footwear. And then, given how these Pokemon look with the scarf, headband, and obi, as well as their bodies resembling a fancy kimono, a haori, and a yukata, and the fact that the ogre is obsessed with masks and the player characters are dressed all nice like this, and that the promotional art looks like this, yeah, this is definitely a big Japanese matsuri or festival for sure, perfectly going in line with the starter Pokemon using the theme of celebration. No video about that here, but there are many summer festivals in Japan with many different themes, but one such theme works out especially for our purposes here because there are Momotaro festivals, such as the one in Okayama. And festivals are times for silly fun and good feelings, are they not? Hence the names of all these new Pokemon. Yeah, and masks are an iconic souvenir item sold and worn at these festivals too, so the whole teal mask theming is just double perfect. But now, a big question. This is all incredibly Japanese for a region based on Iberia, isn't it? Sure, Paldea had those 4 Pokemon of ruin and the whole bamboo forest area, but this is a whole new level. Well, let's go back in time a little bit. Remember the Isle of Armor, the DLC for Sword and Shield? It was incredibly Chinese, despite Galar being based on Great Britain. But to be more specific, the Isle of Armor combines elements of the Isle of Man, which is off the coast of Great Britain, and one of Britain's historic tiny colonies, Hong Kong, which is by China, and a similar thing is happening here. The Teal Mask takes place on Kitakami, and given the small glimpse of a map that we see, it seems like it's based on Mallorca, a Spanish island off the east coast of Spain, which has many mountains, which we see this map point out, along with snow, which Mallorca's mountains frequently get. So in that way, it is similar to the Isle of Armor being akin to the Isle of Man, but then where does the Asian influence come in? Well, for several centuries, Japan was extremely isolationist, barely letting any foreigners onto the island, but especially not Westerners once contact was made. But from the mid-1500s to the mid-1800s, there were two exceptions to this. The first was the Portuguese, then later the Dutch. Both were allowed to make a trading post in Japan, but they were still not allowed on the mainland. They were limited to a single island. Dejima was an artificial island off the coast of Nagasaki. This island's dedicated purpose was connecting Japan to Portugal through trade, and Portugal, of course, is the other country on Iberia, so we have every reason to combine this Iberian island and this Japanese one. Plus, the city connected to Dejima was Nagasaki, which works great too, as it's one of Japan's major cities, and as such has many huge festivals, one of the most famous being the Nagasaki Lantern Festival, and looking back at that promotional image for the Teal Mask, yeah, that's a lot of lanterns! Bonus fact, one of the new characters this DLC introduces, Carmine, is a Kitakami native, and she's described as chilly towards people from other regions, which just perfectly describes Japan as a whole at the time. Very distrusting of foreigners. Now, this may be referenced in the DLC, but maybe also not, but the reason Dejima stopped being the only trade post with foreigners in the mid-1800s is because of the arrival of the Black Ships, aka British and American warships coming in and saying, "Open the country. Stop having it be closed." And so they did. It was a massive turning point in Japanese history, and you can really see the fear these people had for these ships in how they were often depicted as Oni themselves, which now starts getting into Japan-US relations and explains why Sock and Throw are in Unova, which is based in the US, and to learn more about all of that, here is a link to that video. Once this Teal Mask DLC is out, we'll have a much deeper dive into these new Pokemon, but I wanted to mention all this while the iron was hot, so to speak. I hope you liked it, and that you learned something. And until next time, never stop using your noggin.